the Knights Templar. They were a medieval Catholic military order, officially known as the Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon, founded in the year 1119. Their primary purpose was to protect Christian pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land, particularly Jerusalem, after it was captured during the First Crusade. Over time, the Templars evolved into one of the most powerful and influential organizations in medieval Europe, both militarily and economically. The order was founded by a group of 9 knights led by Hugh de Payens, a French nobleman. They initially took monastic vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, dedicating their lives to protecting pilgrims. The group received the endorsement of the Catholic Church in 1129 at the Council of Troyes, under the guidance of Saint Bernard of Clairvaux. Their headquarters were established on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, which is why they became known as the Templars. The Knights Templar had a hierarchical structure, with a Grand Master at the top, followed by other high-ranking officials such as marshals, commanders, and seneschals. Each member took vows similar to those of monks and lived in communal environments, although they were active in battle. The Knights Templar quickly became known for their prowess in battle. They played a major role in several key conflicts during the Crusades, defending Christian territories and fortifications and leading military campaigns against Muslim forces. Their discipline and organization made them one of the most feared military units of the time. The order's downfall began in the early 14th century. By this time, the Christian Crusader states in the Holy Land had fallen, diminishing the Templars' military relevance. Their enormous wealth and independence made them a target of envy and suspicion. King Philip IV of France, deeply in debt to the Templars, saw an opportunity to destroy the order and seize its wealth. In 1307, he launched a coordinated arrest of the Templar leadership across France, accusing them of heresy, blasphemy, and various immoral acts. Under torture, many Templars confessed to these charges, though historians believe these confessions were coerced. Pope Clement V, under pressure from Philip, officially disbanded the order in 1312 through the papal bull Vox in Excelso. Many of the Templars were executed, including Grand Master Jacques de Molay, who was burned at the stake in 1314. Despite their dissolution, the Knights Templar left a lasting legacy. Their military and financial innovations influenced future orders and systems. Over time, the Templars have become the subject of numerous legends and conspiracy theories. These include claims that they discovered secret religious artifacts, such as the Holy Grail, the Ark of the Covenant, or other treasures hidden under the Temple Mount. Sufi orders. These are organized groups in Islam that focus on Sufism, the mystical branch of Islam. Sufism emphasizes the inner, spiritual journey toward God through love, devotion, and self-discipline. These orders are centered around a spiritual leader, or guide called a sheikh, who leads followers along the path of spiritual development. One major Sufi order is the Qadariya. This order was founded by Abdul Qadir al-Jilani. The Qadariya order is one of the oldest and most widespread Sufi orders. Founded in Baghdad, it emphasizes asceticism, adherence to Islamic law, and a deep commitment to the love of God. Followers of the Qadariya engage in practices such as dhikr, the remembrance of God and prayer. The teachings of Abdul Qadir al-Jilani focus on inner purity, humility, and devotion, with a strong emphasis on the direct, personal experience of God. This order spread across the Islamic world, from the Middle East to Africa and Asia, influencing numerous other Sufi movements and sects. Another major Sufi order is the Mevlevi, founded by Jalal ad-Din Muhammad Rumi, the Persian mystic and poet. The order is famous for its unique ritual, the Sema, a whirling dance performed as a form of meditation and devotion to God. This practice symbolizes the soul's ascent toward divine truth and the spiritual journey. Rumi's poetry and philosophy, emphasizing love as the central element of the universe, form the core of the Mevlevi order's teachings. The Mevlevi order became one of the most influential Sufi groups in the Ottoman Empire and remains widely respected for its spiritual and cultural contributions, particularly through Rumi's teachings. These orders have spread across the Islamic world and influenced Islamic culture, spirituality, and even politics. With many adherents in regions such as North Africa, Turkey, Iran, and South Asia, the teachings of Sufi orders have had a lasting impact on Islamic mysticism, literature, and art. The Brethren of Purity. This was a secretive, esoteric society of Muslim philosophers who flourished in Basra, Iraq, during the 10th century. They are most famous for their influential work, the Epistles of the Brethren of Purity, a 52-volume encyclopedia that covers a wide range of subjects, from philosophy, religion, and ethics to mathematics, astronomy, and the natural sciences. Their goal was to harmonize Islamic teachings with Greek philosophy, particularly the ideas of Plato, Aristotle, and Pythagoras, along with other wisdom traditions from Persian, Indian, and Christian sources. The Brethren of Purity believed that true knowledge and enlightenment could only be achieved by combining religious faith with philosophical reasoning and scientific investigation. Their teachings aimed to provide a comprehensive understanding of the world, both spiritually and materially, in order to purify the soul and bring it closer to God. They They emphasized the unity of all human beings, advocating for a universal brotherhood that transcended religious, ethnic, and social differences. They were also influenced by Neoplatonic ideas, particularly the concept of the one God as the source of all existence, from whom all things emanate. They advocated for a balanced approach that integrated Islamic theology with philosophy and science. They believed that reason and revelation were complementary paths to understanding the divine truth. They developed a hierarchical cosmology known as the Great Chain of Being, where everything in the universe was interconnected, from the lowest material forms to the highest spiritual entities. This cosmology reflected the interdependence of all things, from minerals and plants to animals, humans, angels, and ultimately God. Like other esoteric groups of the time, the Brethren operated, keeping their teachings hidden from the general public and distributing their writings only to a select group of initiates. They believed that true knowledge should be reserved for those who were spiritually ready to receive it. The Brethren of Purity declined due to their secretive nature, limiting their influence to a small intellectual elite, along with the political instability of the time, especially the decline of the Abbasid Caliphate. The Bogomils. They were a Christian dualist sect that emerged in the 10th century in Bulgaria, likely named after their founder, a priest called Bogomil, which translates to friend of God. Their teachings combined elements of Gnosticism, Manichaeism, and early Christian beliefs, forming a unique spiritual system that rejected both the institutional church and the material world. The Bogomils believed in a dualistic cosmology, where the universe was divided between two opposing forces, God and Satan. They taught that God created the spiritual world, while Satan created the physical world, which they regarded as inherently corrupt. As a result, they viewed the material body and the physical world as prisons for the soul. Salvation, in their view, was achieved by renouncing the material world and living a life of asceticism and spiritual purity. The Bogomils preached a life of moral and ethical purity, which included pacifism, vegetarianism, and celibacy for the most devoted members. They emphasized the importance of spiritual over material wealth and rejected the authority of both the state and the institutional church. The movement spread throughout the Balkans and into Byzantium, gaining followers among peasants and the lower classes who were disillusioned with the wealth and corruption of the official church. Due to their radical beliefs and rejection of ecclesiastical authority, the Bogomils were persecuted by both the Byzantine Empire and the Bulgarian Tsars, the Cathars. This group was deeply influenced by earlier dualist movements like the Bogomils. Much like the Bogomils, the Cathars believed in a strict dualism, where a good spiritual God created the soul, and an evil force, often associated with Satan, was responsible for the material world. However, the Cathars developed their own distinct traits. Unlike the more localized Bogomils, the Cathars spread widely across southern France and gained significant political and social influence. They formed a structured community with an elite class known as the Perfects, who lived in strict asceticism, practicing celibacy, vegetarianism, and rejecting material wealth. Ordinary believers, while not held to such high standards, still strove to emulate these ideals. The Cathars also believed in reincarnation, which set them apart from many other Christian heresies. They taught that souls were trapped in the material world through a cycle of rebirth until they achieved purity, escaping the cycle and returning to the spiritual realm. This belief in spiritual liberation through multiple lives gave their doctrine a unique emphasis on personal purity and moral discipline. The Albigensian Crusade, a brutal campaign launched by the Catholic Church, ultimately crushed the Cathar movement, the Assassins. They were officially called the Nizari Ismailis, a breakaway faction of Shia Islam. Hassan I-Sabbah embraced the esoteric teachings of Ismailism early in life. He believed that divine truth could only be understood through a hidden, mystical interpretation of Islam. Charismatic and determined, he set out to establish a stronghold for his vision, seized control of the remote mountain fortress of Alamut, a seemingly impregnable stronghold in the mountains of northern Persia. This would become the heart of the Nizari Ismaili state. The Assassins, as they became known to outsiders, employed targeted political killings to eliminate their enemies, powerful Sunni rulers, military commanders, and religious leaders who opposed their cause. For nearly 2 centuries, the Assassins held sway over parts of Persia and Syria, operating in the shadows and striking fear into the hearts of kings, sultans, and caliphs alike. But their unique form of warfare, based on secrecy and terror, eventually faced a foe they could not overcome, the Mongols. Hulagu Khan, a grandson of Genghis Khan, launched a brutal campaign that led to the siege of Alamut. Despite the fortress's defenses, it fell to the overwhelming force of the Mongol army, and the Nizari Ismaili state was dismantled. Centuries later, the Assassins would inspire stories of clandestine brotherhoods, conspiracy, and secret warfare, especially in the popular video game series Assassin's Creed, which drew on the myths and history of the Nizari Ismailis. The Adamites. They were a heretical Christian sect with Gnostic influences that emerged in different periods of history, notably during the early Christian era and again in the Middle Ages. They believed in living in a state of purity and innocence, seeking to return to the conditions of the Garden of Eden. This included rejecting social conventions like marriage and property, and in some cases practicing rituals in the nude as a symbol of their Edenic state, free from sin. The Adamites held dualist beliefs, seeing the material world as corrupt, and focused on spiritual purity. They were often condemned by mainstream Christian authorities for their radical practices and views, and their communities were periodically suppressed due to accusations of immorality and heresy.